welcome back to Brashonomics. I'm Ben Brashin, and Kathleen Miller joined. Hi, Kathleen.
Good afternoon.
It's nice to see you. Kathleen Miller is the owner and founder of Miller Advisors, who has published 2 books, was recently honored with the Influencer Award by Financial Planning Magazine, and considered to be one of the top 100 wealth advisors by Worth Magazine. Kathleen, I saw you. I know you do a lot with relationships, and that people do. They kind of fight or they flight, and they have different fighting styles. So when you look at like working with professionals or having a relationship with like GoDaddy, I mean, you must see this interpersonal reactions around money a lot.
I do, because I do financial planning, and so I know about people's finances in a lot of different areas: their estates, their taxes, their investments, their budgets.
Sure. And so when you have people, I mean, I guess when you have 2 people, whether maybe they're married and they're going through, and all of a sudden maybe they have more money than they thought they were, maybe they have less money, I would guess that people start treating each other differently.
Yes. Relationships or money are very important. Whether the relationship you got when you were dealing with your family, your parents, your brothers and sisters, and you meet someone. I mean, you're going out on a date today, and who's going to pay? No, you aren't. Oh. I'm not. But if we were.
If somebody was.
If somebody was going out on a date, maybe Heather's going out on a date.
Heather.
Who pays?
Ooh,
Who pays?
My boyfriend does.
Right. I mean, and I deal with older people, and many of them have, particularly if they've gone through a divorce or if they've been widowed, they really don't know how to act. I mean, who's going to do what?
And so, this, I guess, starts down those big questions around how long do you continue, I guess, how do you deal with a relationship? And I only bring this up because of the whole GoDaddy deal, right? And so, some people are so quick to just go, well, I'm out of here. This isn't working the way I wanted. And some people understand and maybe have a little bit better scope on the big picture.
Well, usually, for example, if you've gotten married or you've bought a piece of real estate with someone, and there are ties that bind, a contract, you don't just get to walk away. And so I think people that are in that kind of relationship or contract need to know how they're going to get in, but also how they're going to get out. What's their exit plan, whether it's death, disability, or divorce.
Well, when you start looking at, the exit strategy, or maybe once somebody has exited, I know that there's a lot of different planning people need to do. I mean, whether you exited a relationship because of a divorce or exit a relationship because you died. There's a lot of different things that need to be in place for planning.
Right.
What are some of the biggest tips you have for people to maybe plan beyond, the current scope of what they're doing?
Well, when I'm talking to people about a relationship, several things I tell them. Ask, does the person have a will?
Are you in it?
Not necessarily are you in it. But if you're going to buy a piece of real estate, for example, before you're married, do you have an agreement that states where the money's coming from and how it gets paid if you separate, whether it's death, disability, or divorce? And so, I think you have to get the answers to a lot of those questions. I think anybody that's getting married or in a relationship should probably get a credit report on the other person, just so that what they said is true is really true. And I think a basic question also is, do you have a will? And if you don't have a will, you do have a will, in the sense that if you die intestate in Washington or any other state, you have a will. It might not be the way you want it to be.
Might not be your will, but there's one out there for you.
There's one out there for you. And so just, understand how you own something, how it's registered. If you're married, we're in one of the few community property states. There are just so many things to be thinking about and talking about in that relationship around money. And some people say, oh, it'll work itself out. If I'm dead, I'm dead. It's not my problem. But it could be the other person's problem.
Yeah, or it could be a big financial problem for the whole entire family, which creates a lot of rifts. Now it's not your problem, but you've created problems that didn't need to be there.
Well, and I'm dealing with some elderly clients right now, and I think 2 documents that are really important, besides having a will, is your power of attorney and your directive to physicians. And the power of attorney, I've got a situation right now where there are 6 children. They don't agree with what's going on with mom. Mom is spending money not in the way I would like to see, and she's So I've asked for the power of attorney. They're disagreeing on who really is the power of attorney and how it's going to be enacted. The other thing you see is where you'll see the children become, they get on the bank accounts. So you're one of 6 children, and suddenly mom, can't handle her finances real well, so she puts John on it with her. Well, and they've registered as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. That means that when mom dies, it goes to John, and the rest of the family are out of luck. So just knowing how you register your assets, get a will, have your power of attorney for both health and to make decisions. And, go ahead.
So when you start looking, there's a lot of financial instruments that really need to be in place, but it's not really about money at this point. It's about the paperwork that you write. It's, I guess to put it in another way, it's not about the numbers, it's about the words.
Yes. Well, people sign tax returns all the time that are husband and wife that have absolutely no idea what they're signing.
Well, have you seen most people's tax returns? Mine are like 50 pages long.
Yes,
you've seen mine?
No, but if you would work with me, I'd have yours.
But you know what I mean? So you
yes.
We actually talked with Boy Scoff last week just about taxes and how confusing they are. And half the time, I think people do sign stuff that they don't understand because it's 50 pages. It looks like 50 Excel spreadsheets tacked on top of each other.
I totally agree with you, but I also say trust, but verify.
Okay.
If your name is on something, you should have a general sense of what's going on in your income tax return.
I know I wish it was higher.
Yes, but you should know what your marginal tax bracket is and your effective tax bracket, and it's a big discussion in the political arena today because, as we know, Mitt Romney has a lot of investment income and capital gains, which he gets at 15%. That's why you hear Buffett saying he pays less taxes than his personal assistant because she is on a salary and he has investment income. So it's good to have some understanding of this.
Sure. So let's get away from tax returns, but let's get into the amount of words that go into some of these documents. You talk about like a will. You have to find somebody who you can kind of trust, right, to help you with your will.
Right.
But then you should read it, I would imagine.
Right. Well, I think the hardest thing is...
Well, I know you should read it.
Well, yes, you should read it. You should not only read it. Well, if you have one of these long, involved documents, it means that you must have something. And there must be a reason for having all these documents. You can get a very basic will. You can have the power of attorney for health and for your competence level. You can name who you want to handle your affairs. I think one of the biggest things for young people is if they have a retirement account, an annuity, any retirement, IRA, 401k, they pass per beneficiary designation. They do not pass per your will. And it wouldn't make sense to name your will as your beneficiary because a trust, an estate doesn't have a life expectancy. And so if you're 49 and you die and you've named your estate, it means that you're going to have to pay taxes quickly.
So this is where you start getting into, all the different pieces of the puzzle that your average person just doesn't know. That's very difficult. So, and again, I'm just going to go back to this whole GoDaddy fiasco because you have a relationship with somebody. You talk about the age of 49. You can talk about the age of 59 and a half. You can talk about the age of 62 for Social Security, all these different pieces. And this is where I start to think that it's the relationship that can be so important. And even though there might be some little pieces that don't go as perfect as planned, like GoDaddy kind of getting shut down today, your clients, your GoDaddy in some ways knows all the, all your hosting plans and all this, so they continue to service you well, even though there was a glitch in the system. So I guess in some ways, having somebody that you can rely on for your will, understanding they are financially savvy, understanding the things that you can do with your assets potentially before you pass on or before you turn a certain age. These are all key points.
Right. But I think that there are some basics that people have. Some real basics. If you begin to have any assets, whether it's in the form of real estate, whether it's in the form of retirement, you have anything, or you have stuff, and you want to make sure that the stuff goes to who you want to go to, you can go online and get a simple will and get some simple documents from these legal sites. And for people, and there are a lot of people out there that don't have wills, one site that I would suggest that they go to is washington-wills.com, because it will tell you what the will that you didn't ask for that you have in the state of Washington is going to make pass your assets. And so, again, I think that when you start having children and you're married or you're getting married, these are times that you want to have some legal contract. And we're in a community property state, and I see this oftentimes when I'll see people buying a piece of real estate, and we call it the community property agreement, where you're working with an estate planning attorney. They don't really know all that's going on, and they do what they call an I love you will, which is everything I had before my marriage and after my marriage, I now dream as community property, which means you just gave up your separate inherited. If you have an inheritance and you've kept it separate, you just converted that to community property. You can't dig that back out unless the other person cooperates. And we see this all the time in divorce. And so it's just important when you go to the bank and you're opening an account, understand what the ownership choices are. Community property, joint tenants with right of survivorship, joint tenants. What does it mean?
And these are all things that if you don't know, because you can read it, you may not understand what it says.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's something people could turn to their financial advisor for. Like, what should I do in this position?
Well, there are financial advisors and there are financial advisors. First of all, I'm a certified financial planner, which means I'm trained. I work with professionals, so I don't do a tax return. I don't write a will, but I send people to reliable sources where they can get this work done. And so just as it's the same in real estate or getting a mortgage, and what you were talking about, GoDaddy, when the times are tough, you need to work with someone you have some history with and you can trust, who's going to be there for you. And if they're leaving you just because of one blip then they're not really a client and they're not really loyal to you in the first place.
Yeah, that loyalty really comes out when everything goes smooth, and then one thing comes up, and now no longer are they a customer or a client. Well,
I think there's a difference between being a customer and being a client. I mean, and the classic case in our area is with both Starbucks and with not Microsoft, but really Starbucks and I'd say Nordstrom. I mean, if they have a relationship with you, they will keep calling you. I mean, they will be there for you. They'll make it right for you. I mean, they go to the end. And where a lot of companies, the person may be in India for all you know, in a call center, has no authority to do anything. That's not a relationship. That's a customer.
That's when you call customer service versus, I guess, a client relationship.
Yes.
Hey, Kathleen, we do have to go to break, but stick around for a few minutes. I'd love to get some more of your opinions. Kathleen Miller, CFP, owner and founder of Miller Advisors. When we come back, David Bell is going to join us. Kathleen Miller, myself, Heather Moore. We're going to talk a little bit more about when it's time to maybe call it quits with a professional you're working with, or maybe if you should prolong that relationship, all the different things and factors that go into making those decisions. We'll be back after this break.